Welcome back to the Legal Lead Shark podcast, where high-growth law firms and the marketers who power them come to sharpen their edge. If you're obsessed with leads, conversions, and building law firms to dominate your market, then you're in the right place. We go deep into the top minds in legal marketing to the next generation of law firm owners who are making waves, uncovering the strategies, tools, and mindset it takes to turn more of those clicks into signed cases. I'm your host, Terrazas, and today's guest is someone every law firm owner needs in their corner. Leah Miller is a fractional CFO and bookkeeper who knows law firm finances from the inside out. She started as a legal assistant, worked her way up through the law firm ranks, and now helps law firm owners confidently make smart, strategic financial decisions that fuel growth. With over a decade of experience inside of law firms, Leah doesn't just crunch numbers. She brings deep operational insight and mission-driven mindsets to help lawyers get clear on cash flow, cut through the chaos, and finally feel in control of their money. Whether you're scaling past your first hire, pushing towards your first 7 or 8 figure year, or just wondering why revenue's up but profit is still falling flat, Leah's here to show you what's really happening behind the numbers and how to fix it. Today, we're talking financial blind spot, hiring triggers, and the profit mistakes most law firms keep repeating, and what it really takes to scale sustainably without flying blind. Leah, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it's so good to be here today and talk to you.
I'm excited about this conversation. It's going to be an insightful one, I know, and a lot of law firm owners are going to get a lot out of this. I think operations and finances is a major blind spot. Working with law firms, I can tell you that from personal experience. But before we get into the numbers and strategies and the biggest blind spot, give our listeners a quick snapshot, who you are, where you're from, and kind of what got you into the legal fractional CFO space.
So my name's Leah, like you said. I live in Florida. I actually just moved from Southwest Florida up to the Tampa area. I started as a paralegal, and my goal one day was to manage a law firm. And I thought I would be really old when that happened, in my 40s, and I'm almost 40 now. So now that doesn't feel old. But when I was 25, that seemed so far away. Through right place, right time, and a lot of hard work on my part, I actually was promoted to law firm office manager, firm administrator when I was only 27. My old boss gave me a chance when it came, and I took it and ran with it. During that time, I was still litigation paralegal. I went back to school and got my MBA. And by the time I left the firm, I was the firm administrator CFO. I went off on my own 2.5 years ago because I wanted to run my own business. I wanted more time with my kids at home, and I just wanted to do my own thing. And I saw through talking to people I knew that law firm owners really needed some help and guidance in the financial space. And so through Fractional CFO services and a full bookkeeping firm with employees that I have now, has been able to do that and give those law firm owners the confidence that they are looking for.
That's amazing. I really didn't realize, I think, the depth of what a blind spot this was, because I deal on the marketing side. So get my clients at the top of Google, deal with intake. But a lot of people running ads, they're spending a lot of money, which then kind of made me aware of the cash cycle that these law firms are having to go through to get from the click to the settlement. And sometimes for a lot of firms, especially personal injuries, one top of mind, those can be really long cash cycles. And if you're not prepared for that financially and you don't know your numbers, it can blindside and sink a firm really quickly. And my mentor and coach, he's scaled 2 7-figure ad agencies. That's who I learned Google Ads under. He always says, Kaylee, the person that knows their numbers when it comes to Google and marketing, the people that know their numbers win, period. Google is a money printing machine or a money burning pit, depending on what side you're sitting on. And so when you and I talked offline when we first met, we got pretty quickly into the conversation of how law firms have a big blind spot of not knowing their numbers, right? They go to law school. They're not trained to be an HR person, an intake person, a marketing person. They're not trained on all of the different aspects it's going to take to really scale a law firm. When it's small, it's easier to manage. Once you start getting into scale mode, it becomes, you've got to get these experts into place. So one thing I love about what happened with COVID is it really changed a lot of the narrative where I can almost be essentially a fractional CMO for them. Well, that's a huge expense that you're saving in outsourcing. And I think the same thing with operations finance. If you can offload that and not have a full-time employee, as your HR and payroll overhead, that's going to be a massive win. So tell us a little bit about fractional CFO work for law firms. What does that look like? And we'll jump into the next question to piggyback off that would be, what are their biggest blind spots? You're going into a law firm, you're looking at their numbers for the first time, kind of go from there.
A lot of people, when I first talk to them, they're like, I have my CPA and there's my tax preparer and they do all of this. And I like to educate people on all of the financial people you need in your corner. You have your CPA that files your taxes. You want them to be really good at that. Then you have your bookkeeper who's looking in the past. They're categorizing transactions, making sure your financial data is accurate. And there's more to that than just what you need for tax purposes as well. You need the financial data organized in a way so that you can make operational decisions based on the financial data. And so that's where a CFO comes in, or fractional CFO. We are taking that data and we are looking towards the future to help you make operational decisions based on the numbers instead of hoping the numbers get into your operational decisions. And so that's hiring, how much to spend on marketing, when we can hire another attorney. Are we ready for that? When can we make the move? When can we invest all of this money? And so that's really what the CFO does is we work together to say, okay, this is our goal. I always start with goal. Where do you want to go? This is our goal 5 years, 10 years, just a year from now. How do we work backwards? How do we get to that so that you are feeling confident in those finances to make the decisions? And you know that when you hire that new paralegal and that new attorney, you are going to have the cash to fund that. You're not going to be worrying about making payroll. Like you said, personal injury, that's where I came from. That's my background is personal injury. You got high highs and low lows. And when you settle that big case, you want to take all that money, but you need to save some of that for when things go low. I think that's one of the biggest blind spots as well. And it's not just on the contingency side. It's also, the hourly billing, invoicing and things like that. But I think that's one of the blind spots is how much does it actually cost to run up my law firm? And when I first start working with clients, I hope all my clients know now how much it costs. But when I first start working with clients, a lot of them have no idea. They don't know if it costs them $50,000 a month or $350,000 a month. And so when we lay it all out and I say, this is what you're actually spending, this is your break even. If you don't bring in $300,000 a month, you cannot cover your bill. It is eye opening. And there's not always big changes that we need to make. It's just being aware of those numbers. So, I'm not coming in and working with clients and be like, you need to change everything. This is how you're going to win. Be aware of the numbers and use those to make decisions going forward. And I think that's the biggest blind spot is just knowing the numbers. And I tell people, just looking at the financials every month will change the trajectory of your firm without making any other changes. Just looking at them every single month and being aware.
Yeah. So I read a book. And again, this book, I read a lot of books on how to grow your law firm, how to scale your law firm. Like I nerd out on this stuff. People are like, what do you read for fun? I'm like, educational books. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean for fun? But so I read a book by Mike Morris. I refer to this book all the time because I've read several on how to like what they don't teach you in law school, et cetera, et cetera. Really good books. But Mike has probably one of the best examples of what we're talking about here. So he had a conversation. He was making millions, had a small firm, really small, but I think it was him and one other lawyer and a small team. But he was stuck and he couldn't scale past it. And there was two big things that happened and it changed the trajectory. And now he is one of the biggest personal injury law firms in Detroit. And what that was, one, the conversation he had with his father-in-law. And his father-in-law was a businessman, not a lawyer, but general business and good at what he did. Had dinner with Mike one day and he said, what's this number? What's this number? Well, what are these numbers? And Mike kept saying, I don't know, which again, to your point, the first point of solving anything is being aware of something, right? But he said, and there's a whole chapter in his book called The Legal Jumbotron. And he said, Mike, essentially what you're doing is, that'd be like going to a basketball game with no scoreboard. You have no idea who's winning, who's losing, what the stats are, how much time is left, who's the MVP. Like, nothing about what's going on at the game. It wouldn't be any fun. And that's the first time it dawned on him, I don't know my numbers. I have no idea what's going on, right? Because he's so busy being a lawyer that he didn't even realize that was his blind spot. So off the back of that conversation, he hires a business coach who is actually crazy enough, the author of the book Traction, which I love that book too, the EOS system, which I know you probably love. So the coaching session, the very first one, he said, Mike, you're the visionary. You don't have an integrator. Essentially, visionaries are the ones that will jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down. But the integrator's the one that knows how to build the plane or what parts you need, to be able to take it to the top. Anyways, long story short, he hires a COO, which I think for the most part, I would even venture to, and correct me if I'm wrong here in a minute, but I would even venture to say for most firms hiring you as a fractional CFO, you're kind of a CEO at the same time. Now, once they scale to like he has 300 employees, absolutely, you need a full-time this and a full-time that, you need all of these people internally. But if you're still in that messy middle where you're scaling, a lot of that can be done through what you're doing too. Essentially hires a COO. John looked at all the numbers, saw all the blind spots, and within it was like, the book feels like overnight. He was able to scale his law firm. Now he's like like $1.5 billion firm or whatever, 300 employees. But that never would have happened without an integrator, without someone to come in, like you said, and to see what's happening, even if it was for the sake of knowing what the scoreboard is, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's where knowing your numbers is the first step. And to your point about fractional COOs, I actually work with some fractional COOs. I know the operations behind. So that's kind of my expertise is I know the operations of a law firm. So I know how the operations and the finances work hand in hand. And so I can help, when do we need to get that COO in? How do we do that? Because a lot of times the lawyers are so into the operations that they can't get anything else done. And so on the side of knowing the numbers and just having it all laid out, that's what I do with clients is we start with, okay, what are your goals? All right, here's your budget. And I literally take averages for the last 12 months of what you've spent in every category, put in the wage information because we know how much we're paying everybody. And I literally go line by line with attorneys, with law firm owners. And I'm like, you are spending $5,000 a month on your dues and subscription. And they're like, well, what is even in that category? And so that gives a starting point. And then every single month, we literally look at that budget we put together. How much did we spend in January? How much should we spend in February? And so it's not even about spending too much money because obviously in some categories like dues and subscriptions, like we budgeted $5,000 a month. Why did we spend $15,000 this month? And so we look at that, but then are we spending enough? And to your side of things, marketing, that thing I can think of one client I have in the last 2.5 years where I've gone in and I'm like, wow, you are spending enough money on marketing. Most of them, they're not spending enough. And so we'll look and I'll say, we budgeted $25,000 for marketing this month. What's going on? We only spent 5. And then, we'll talk about it. We'll say, do we need to increase? Do I need to meet with your marketing person so we can lay out a budget to make sure that we're increasing this marketing spend? Was there a cash flow issue that prevented you from actually spending how much you need to spend? And then we also get into, is there an intake issue? Because we don't want to spend $30,000 on marketing if we can't even sign up any of the cases of the people who call. And so that's where the operations and the finances really work together so that you are making decisions based on what the finances look like. Because we can even look at, we're spending 50% of our revenue paying the people working for us. 50% is high. We want it more in the 30% range. And so the people on your team are not generating enough revenue. Is that are they not being efficient? Are we not bringing in enough cases? Do they not have enough work? So what lever do we need to pull to make that work the way it needs to?
Yeah. And I was so excited when we talked because I'm like, thank you. Someone besides me who is going to be biased, I'm always telling law firm, I do the same thing. So on the marketing side, the very first conversation I have is what is your marketing budget and where is it going? And 9 times out of 10, there's already an issue, right? And so for example, we'll use personal injury again, just because that's what we've been using. So and this works across all verticals, just so everyone knows, this is legal agnostic, but personal injury firm I spoke to, their CMO was spending about $30,000 a month on TV and radio and billboards, and then about 15 a month on Google Ads. And I'm like, no, 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 no. So you're spending all of your money on pattern interrupt. What are the odds that that person's going to get into a car accident or injured at work, and then they're going to see your billboard on the way home? They're not. They're going straight to Google. At that moment, their life has stopped. Everything that was important has stopped, and they're going straight to who do I need to call to fix this? And that they're going to Google that. And so you've got to be at the top of Google ads, LSA ads, the map pack. We got to get you to the top. That's where 90% of your income is going to come from. And then to your point, my next question is, let's take a look at your intake, and I don't take their word for it because they're all going to say their intake is great. And I hope that they would think that. But 9 times out of 10, when I call and test it myself, I'm like, hey, got some major intake issues. Like we need some training training, and then also eliminating that overflow call centers. $2 to $5 a minute. We've been able to take that in-house with our virtual AI assistants, and we cut one law firm $2,000 a month. We cut the call center out, and we were getting a higher conversion rate with our AI intake centers that were just soft qualifying the leads and getting them over. That's $2,000 to go back into your budget. But where it gets hairy and where you and I have really good synergy here and can really help law firms is you're running a budget for marketing and then you're getting them signed. But what does it look like? And when I ask people, what is your average lifetime value of a client? They have no idea. Okay, well, let's break that down. And then let's sub that down to death cases, slip and falls, or if you're a criminal attorney, what is a DUI case valued at? And I help them calculate those numbers because we have to see where is our break even point. We want you net positive. And if I see a Google Ads account audit and I'm doing an audit, I can tell immediately if they've been running the same budget for 12 months, either you're not making money on Google or you're not working with the right agency because this should be printing you money. But if you don't know your numbers, like you have no idea what's happening. You're looking for red and green arrows because you don't know how to read the reports. And then you're working with an ads agency that has no idea what's happening in legal after the click. They don't know the difference between a CMV, an NVA, or a death case, or workers' comp. They have no idea what those values are to you. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. When you go in, you're looking through their different numbers. The first blind spot that you see is not knowing your numbers. And then the second is you start breaking down for them where they're at and where they want to be based on their goals. And then you guys can even handle the bookkeeping too, which I want to preface this by saying if you're working with like a CPA, great. If you're working with a bookkeeper, great. But it would make more sense to work with somebody like on bookkeeping side of things that has a legal background. Just like it would make more sense to work with someone that runs Google Ads for lawyers and knows what happens after that click. So tell us a little bit about your bookkeeping because that's interwoven into your operational background and how you guys know things that just someone that does general bookkeeping for all verticals wouldn't see.
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, there is bookkeeping for tax purposes. Yes, you need to do that. You need to file taxes. We want to save on taxes. Yeah. Your CPA most of the time does not have the time to stop and actually look at your book and say, hey, noticed you were spending way too much on your wages this month. They're not going to have the time. They're focused on taxes, tax savings, all of that. So bookkeeping to use for operational purposes and the way that we do bookkeeping is one, we're going to categorize everything in your QuickBooks on a weekly basis so that when you're mid-month and Kaylee gets on a call with you, you can say, Kaylee, we've spent $15,000 on Google Ads already this month. Like, what's going on? So we want to be able to look at any time at your financials and get a decent snapshot of what it looks like, especially for firms like personal injury firms where cash flow is, sometimes we're week to week on cash flow, especially when you're in like a high growth phase where you're hiring all these people, but like your cases are not settling just yet. We need to know what the financials look like. So that's one part of it. The other part is we break down our financials in a way that you can pull the report straight from QuickBooks. So if you're not working with me on a CFO service schedule, you can run reports in your QuickBooks and see, okay, we are spending 35% of our money, our revenue on wages. 15% of that is for our attorneys. 15% of it is for our legal assistants. So I try to break down wages by, attorney wage, owner wages, support staff, marketing staff, operations. So we can break that down and see like, okay, this is where we're spending our money. Same on the marketing side. I have some clients will break out Google ad, lead generate services and stuff like that. And so your books are done in a way that like either me as your fractional CFO can pull the information pretty easily and see it. And I work with people. If you have a bookkeeper you love, I will work with you on the fractional CFO side. You don't have to hire us these bookkeepers, but we do offer everything. And then because I have a background in legal, had to maintain a trust account, we have that knowledge to make sure your trust account is done in a way that is compliant because you don't ever want to become relaxed about it. You need to have a client ledger. You need to have everything broken down. You need to be doing three-way reconciliation. If whoever is doing your books has no idea what a three-way reconciliation is, then you need to find somebody who can. And so that getting somebody who's familiar with law firms, not only do we have the trust accounting side, but we also just know how the operations run, and we can break down your financials in a way that you can use it to make good financial decisions.
That's really important because breaking it down by category, let's say lawyer, paralegal, intake, you can see who's bringing in money, who is a vital resource for the money flow, and then who could be cut if you needed to. And I know nobody wants to, but you have to look at that. Like, for example, a lot of times, and this is business general, I've worked with businesses since 2016 in marketing. And before that, I was in sales. So I know business, right? I know how all the businesses work, not just law firms. But when money gets tight, one of the first places they look to cut is marketing. And I'm like, that's like saying you're drowning and you're going to throw out the raft instead, to try to off some weight. And it doesn't make any sense. So being able to see granular, what's making me money and what's costing me money. And if I have to cut money somewhere, what needs to go is really important in making decisions quickly if you have to. And actually, you and I were introduced by Frank Reckes, Palm Wealth Management. Love Frank, amazing resource. We did a podcast episode called The Rockefeller Method because in reading Mike's book, I wasn't aware. I knew the cash cycles were long for attorneys. I knew that, right? So a lot of times they can be paper rich and cash poor for the time because they're waiting for settlement. What I didn't realize is that many of them were taking really like payday cash loans, really high interest loans to float themselves in between. So Frank and I did a whole podcast on being prepared for that and being able to set up a Rockefeller style savings so that you have your own personal reserve fund, which is brilliant.
Yep.
And attorneys, anyone high net worth should have something like this set up. And I would say Frank's a great resource for that. He works with law firms. And again, everyone wants to say my business is special. My business is different. My business isn't like everyone else's. And yes and no. Foundationally, no. Every business is the same. If you have a visionary with no integrator, even if you're a plumbing company or HVAC company, you're going to fail. You're not going to be able to scale. It's going to be more of a solopreneur, small business. You're never going to be able to scale. But in law firms, to your point, there are some intricacies, whether it's marketing, COO, CFO, tax strategy, there are some intricacies that a higher net worth individual and a legal individual need to be aware of that just a generalist wouldn't know to do for you. So that's why I love having guys like Frank or you on the podcast. I want people to be aware of like, okay, I know I have this issue, but who do I call? I vet people before they come on the podcast. I'm not going to put just anyone on here. So like Leah has my stamp of approval. Her insight, even if it's a consultation to test her out and see if she's the right fit, I'm pretty sure she'll earn your business within the first meeting because she's going to see that generalists are going to miss and you need that corner. So,
well, and you also want, like you said, the foundation is essentially the same, but every firm is different. The legal field is changing drastically. I mean, I look back to when I started in it, 15, 20 years ago. It's so different now. And so everybody will always ask me, they're like, what's the benchmark? How much should I spend on marketing? How much should I spend on my people? How much should operations? And everything's different. I've got firms who are in the same exact practice area who are doing, their business model is completely different. So some are all remote. Some have higher rent that they have to pay. Some clients need more money personally, which is okay. I don't ever judge. People kind of like, they're like, oh, I need to make $50,000 a month. And I'm like, that's fine. You tell me you need to make $50,000 a month personally. This is how you have to do it. It doesn't matter how much you need. And so everybody is different and we spend a different percentage of our revenue on different things. And so, yes, I'm going to tell you to spend more money on marketing, but if you're getting tons of leads and your marketing's working and we need to spend money somewhere else for a little bit, then that's what we're going to do. And so I pride myself on looking at my clients as individual law firms, and I don't give the same advice to every single one because everybody is doing things different. I will tell you my opinion. I will tell you if I don't agree with you, but at the same time, like we need to do things the way that that firm wants to run because everybody has different personal goals as well. I have a client who doesn't want to work as much, wants to work 20 hours a week, but make this much money. So we hire a bunch, a ton of associate attorneys so their wages are higher. That's fine. That attorney, that law firm owner is living the life they want to live. And so we just have to look at everything, different. So yes, all law firms are essentially set up the same, but then we have to look at the nuances of them. And so you need somebody who understands the core model of law firms and how it works, and then somebody who is going to work with you. I partner with my client. I don't preach at you. I don't tell you what to do. I tell you the why and then give you options. If you need $50,000 a month, then we're going to have to cut somewhere else, or you're going to have to figure out a way to generate more revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to piggyback off of that. There are a lot of law firm owners that watch our channel that are maybe on the smaller side, let's say, right? They're on the smaller side and they're looking to scale. When should a smaller firm seriously consider bringing on a CFO, even fractional, right? What indicators should they look for? Because a lot of them are going to try to DIY it themselves as long as they can to save money. I get that. However, I also would challenge them in the thinking of whether it's like books like Dan Martell's Buy Your Time Back or the 10X is easier than 2X. All of these business books will say the same thing. If you're spending 80% of your time on the $10 an hour task, I think Dan Martell said it best. He said, if you're spending 80% of your time on a $10 an hour task, that is not how Amazon was built. You can't do that as the owner. And so at some point, you have to have a mental shift and be willing to bring on a team and pay for someone to help you in areas so that you can focus on the $100 or $1,000 an hour task of being a law firm owner and a lawyer and not doing your books, at midnight on a Saturday. So tell us a little bit for the smaller firms, if they're listening to this and they know that they have a need, what's kind of a good indicator that it's time to call you, whether it's bookkeeping or fractional CFO?
So bookkeeping, you need to call me the day that you open your firm. I won't necessarily tell you that you need to hire me that day, but I have done many consult, and I'll do a free initial consult. We'll talk for 30 minutes. You need to set up your accounting system day one. So QuickBooks Pro Advisor is $25 a month. That is minimal compared to what you will pay to get it set up when you think you're making enough money. I come in and I mean, people spend thousands and thousands of getting their keeping caught up and cleaned up. So day one, you need to have an accounting system in place. Normally pretty quickly, you need a bookkeeper, at least on a minimum basis. So, if you are generating income, revenue, and you have expenses, you need to have accounting set up, and it really is best to outsource the bookkeeping from day one. And it should be done on a weekly or monthly basis from day one. So a lot of people, they'll just have their CPAs, they'll give their CPAs all their bank statements at the end of the year. Their CPA will get all the information input. You need to be doing it on a monthly or weekly basis. For fractional CFO services, so that's normally firms that are $1 million in revenue is when we're looking at that. I tell people all the time, when you're getting to $1 million, things really shift in your firm. You are normally hiring, although I have met with some people who don't do this, normally you are hiring an associate. That becomes the time when there are clients in your firm that you've never met before because they're meeting with a different attorney. You are hiring more team. You feel like when you're between 500 and a million, you feel like all you are doing is spending money and you are not getting any money in return, because it really is. That growth is probably one of the hardest hurdles to climb. And so when you're getting up to that $1 million a year in revenue mark, that's really the time to have somebody even on, I have some clients that I just consult with on a monthly basis. I'm not involved in their internal, accounting, finance, and all of that. We speak every month and look at those financials. And so I work with people on different, I kind of tailor my packages to them for that. And so, yeah, once you're getting close to that million, that's when you really need some more in-depth planning of budget. I'll do one-time budgets for people sometimes where we'll meet a couple times, put together a budget and all of that. So I always tell people, reach out to me no matter what, and I can always give you all of your options. And, I've had people I've met with, and a year down the road, they're like, hey, Leah, finally ready. And so we'll start meeting.
Yeah, same here with marketing. When we do the discovery call, I've had to tell people like, you're not ready yet, like to step onto the Google Ads scene. But here's a lot of other things we can do to get that revenue up, and then call me back. Because my main mission for them, I try to talk people out of it, actually. Initially on the discovery call, I try to talk them out of it. And if they're like, we've got the money, we're doing it, because I want them to win. And I want to always under promise and over over-deliver. So I will always make it look bigger and scarier than it is so that when we deliver, they're like thrilled, That's my goal
Yeah.
with my clients. So
Right.
I agree. Like call Leah day one and see, where you're at, and if you're not on day one, that's fine. Call her now and make sure that you're in the right place. She can tell you if there is some blind spots that need your attention. Better to know it now than if you're in trouble because you missed it.
Yeah, like I said, I've seen people, not even just with me, but I mean, you can spend tens of thousands of dollars fixing your bookkeeping if you get years down the road. And not only in fixing it, paying me to fix it, you can lose tens of thousands of dollars on taxes and things like that if you are overstating your revenue, if you're not capturing all of the expenses. And so I know as a business owner, when you go to do things like buy a house, I just bought a house and I learned so much as a business owner buying a house. But you need your books done in a way so that you're ready to do all of that. And so you don't want to get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, somebody's asking me for financial statements that I have not even done these. You just want them done. And you want to be like, oh yeah, I work with Firmly Profits and my financial statements, I get them every single month. Here you go. And so then they're ready for you.
Yeah. My husband, he does payroll, HR, and credit card processing, and he does it for all businesses, but law firms too. And the amount of money they're missing, some people they come to him in trouble with the Department of Labor already. And it's like an oh shit moment. And you don't want to be there, guys. Like, that is not where you want to be, that you missed something, you misallocated something, whatever. And now you're $70,000, due or whatever. That is what you want to avoid. And that's why having people who know these industries is valuable. But there's so many things that business owners miss, like hiring a veteran, getting that tax credit. That's like $11,000 a year for some businesses. They didn't even know they could get that. So there's just so many reasons why you should not be trying to wear all the hats and DIY it, whether you're going to get yourself in trouble or you're just missing out and you're got all these blind spots that you could have monetized on. So, all right, Leah, before we wrap up, I want to ask you, is there any other blind spots we didn't talk about? Anything that you see kind of across the firms that you see often with a lot of clients that we need to make them aware of before we wrap up the podcast?
I think something that I've been doing a lot of recently is we've been increasing marketing budget, but then we're looking back, have we increased leads or intake with this increase in the marketing budget? And so, we pull numbers from last year and pull numbers from this year, and they're about the same, but we've increased the budget by 2. So that's one of the things of let's not even just look forward. Let's also look back and make sure that these decisions we're making make sense. Same with, the people and who you're hiring. Track data. And from day one, like we were just saying, start your bookkeeping from day one. From day one, start tracking your data. How much you're settling cases for, like you were saying before, kind of knowing the case value. So how much are we settling cases for? How long does it take to settle a case? Start tracking that data from day one, because you will get 2 to 3 years in the future. You will hire me when you hit that $1 million mark, and I will be like, hey, what's your average case value? And you're like, I have no idea. And I say, well, I need you to go through all your cases. I need you to find this out. You'll tell me, Leah, I don't have time for that. That's why I'm hiring you, because I don't have time to do all these things. So starting from day one, tracking that data. So then when we get future and we're spending more in marketing or we're hiring more people, we can look back and say, oh, we've got that data. We know that we are putting money in the right war. We know we need to make these changes. And so put those systems in place from day one, and it will make a huge difference for you in the future when you start working with people like me and Kaylee and other professionals. It'll just make a huge difference.
Yeah. So again, to reference Mike's book, he did that and he went so granular on the numbers, like not just the case value, because a car accident, I can go to ChatGPT and say, what is the average case value for a car accident or for a commercial motor vehicle or whatever. But if it says 50,000, your firm may be doing 30,000. Okay, that's fine. But we need to know that, right? We need to know what your numbers are. But he went a step deeper and realized this attorney and this attorney their close rates were astronomical. They were doing amazing. So then he went to this other attorney. She was really good at the behind the scenes stuff, the paperwork stuff, but her closing rate at trial wasn't as high. And being able to see that, he reallocated some of the work to her in her zone of excellence, and then the ones that were winning more because behind the scenes she was doing their prep work, which gave them the opportunity to go do casework more and, in person the trials, and then they just doubled again. And so when you know your numbers, that's why I agree with my mentor. Those who know their numbers win, whether it's your financials, whether it's your marketing numbers, whether it's your close rates and who's doing what. If you know your numbers, you're going to be a successful firm. And if you don't, maybe you'll like flip a coin.
I know how it is as a new business owner. You start and you're like, I just need to make this much money every single to survive. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to do anything I need to do, and I'm not worrying about anything else. But that is like a short-term growth mindset where you want long-term sustained growth. You don't want just one big windfall case to come through. You want consistent revenue over time. And so being super intentional, even when you are in a period of overwhelm because you're just trying to do everything, will really make the difference long term, and it'll give you peace. And so that's one of my, kind of taglines I say is just I want to give law firm owners confidence in their finance. And that's why I talk to them in a way, I work with them in a way where we are collaborating. I am educating. I want you to understand why, if we are spending 60% of our revenue on wages, why that's such a bad thing. I'm not going to just say, go fire everybody so we can make this number work. I'm going to say, this is what's going on because I want you to have confidence in it. And I don't want you to lose sleep over it all the time, like I know law firm owners do.
Yeah, if you don't have a target, you can't hit something you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like if you don't know your numbers, essentially you're blindfolded. We'll spin you in a circle, give you a dart, and say throw it, and wherever it lands. And that's not very comforting.
It works sometimes. So it'll work. I'm not saying that it won't work. Checking your bank account and hoping there's cash in there, it'll work. But you won't have the fulfillment and the joy that can come from being a business owner if you're not confident in the numbers and where you go. And I think that's the biggest difference. And that's where the way that law firms used to run, because I talked to a lot of firm owners that have been around for decades, and they're like, yeah, we've always been fine. I've never looked at a profit and loss and I've never had an issue. And I will agree, it can work, but it may not give you that confidence and the fulfillment that you want in your business.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so pop quiz question here at the end, just for fun. If your life was a movie scene, every time you walked on the set, what's your theme song?
It's got to be something about chaos. I have 3 kids. I run this business. We just moved to a little farm and I've got way too many farm animals. And it's just like really probably like the clown music is like what follows me around. I thrive in chaos, which is like funny because numbers are so like black and white and all of that. But I thrive in chaos and I love it. And I feel like that's just how I live life when I'm around my kids and all of that. So
I can see
definitely
that.
like
You're operation minded in your business. So outside of your business, you get to like cut loose and have a little fun and let it be a little crazy.
I always say my husband's very calm and I have 3 girls. And I thought one of them would be like his calm demeanor, and they're not. They all have my very big out there personality. And so when we come around, we are known anytime we walk into a room.
That's funny. I love it. I've got 3 boys, so I'm opposite of you. And yeah, I am a boy mom all the way around. I hear girls like in the background screaming. And now, don't get me wrong, my boys are rowdy. And a lot of times I'm like, I can't tell if you're really fighting or not. Is this like a real fist fight or is this play fight? I don't know what's going on here. So it's a different kind of chaos, but it's a beautiful one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for tuning in. Leah, it was so great talking to you. I'm going to leave all of Leah's information in the description below so you can connect with her on LinkedIn. You can book a discovery call with her, see if she's a right fit for your law firm. Before you go, be sure to go watch some of the other amazing interviews I've done with people just like Leah who are an expert in their field to help you grow your law firm smarter, not harder. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.